Well, Todd kind of joked that, we're the only thing standing between you and happy hour, but now he's off the hook, so it's just me. Welcome. Appreciate you all sticking it out here. We are going to talk about the truck scale automation process that we went through at Bisbee, North Dakota. A little bit about myself. I grew up in southern Minnesota. That is corn and soybean country, for those of you that don't know, and worked in that field in that area for the better part of 20 years, and had an opportunity to venture north into North Dakota, where there aren't many corn and soybeans up there. There's about 12 other things. So it was an interesting dynamic to move up there, and really strong, solid co-op. Had been formed in 1984 with the merger of 6 other co-ops coming together in 13 locations just to try to adapt to the changing rail service that we all faced back in the 80s and 90s. So currently we have one terminal that can co-load either on the BNSF or on the Northern Plains Railroad, which is served by the Canadian Pacific. Most of our traffic is on the BNSF, but we're headquartered in Bisbee, North Dakota. We have truck locations in Perth, Rolette, and Rock Lake. Annual volumes of about 12 to 14 million bushel. Typically, about 50% of that is spring wheat, 25% canola. Soybeans are starting to move into the area pretty heavily. Excuse me. And soybeans and barley is still pretty popular up there, and then we still have some sunflowers and flax and some specialties. So quite a diverse crop mix compared to corn and soybeans. So one of the challenges that I've been up there 3 years, one of the first challenges that was given to me was by our board of directors when they hired me. They said, we've got this great and wonderful terminal here. It's about 2.8 million bushels of total storage, but our truck lines are, 2 hours long at harvest time. And our customers, patrons, are starting to get a little upset with the board of directors because we haven't done anything about it to address the problem. And we'd like you to take a look at that and see what you can do. So we took a look at it, and there was a couple of things that needed to happen in order for this to really take full advantage of the potential of that site. It was built back in 1988, so the equipment was a little aged. Great capacity in 1988. They had 2 10,000 bushel an hour legs for receiving. And, when you're getting 25 and 30 bushel wheat yields, that's no problem. But, 70, 80 bushel wheat yields becomes a problem, and at the speed of harvest. So one of the things we did was look at upgrading the terminal. If we did that, we'd have a bottleneck at our scale. So we needed to take a look at adding the second scale, and in order to do that, we needed to manage the way we manage our traffic flow a little better, which meant we needed to change our processes. And in order to streamline our operation, we had to look at automating and look at scale automation as well. So that's what got us to where we are today. So first and foremost, we were already using a one-way scale system. So we went to Cultura and said, we'd like to automate this function, put a little bit more control in our customers' hands to get through the weighing and delivering pit assignment functions a little easier than what we do today. And they said, well, we've got an idea. What do you think? So they came up with a touch screen idea, and that works really, really well in our environment with a lot of crop mixes and a lot of customer splits. There's still a ton of customer splits up there, and the customer splits are now on the RF card, just like what Todd talked about. So when a customer rolls into our facility, they scan their card. And if there's more than one split on that card, they have the opportunity to select the customer that they're delivering for. So it puts the onus on them to make sure that they're delivering grain under the right account. So then from that point, there's a picture of the touch screen right now. You can't, it's got a little bit of a glare on it, but in the bright of day, it's very viewable. So the customer wheels in, scans his card, picks his customer, and then we also have the message boards that tell him to go to one of our 5 pits. Once they've assigned to one of the 5 pits, they go to the outbound scale, scan their card, and they get their ticket. It's pretty seamless. As opposed to before, when we pit sampled everything, they would come back with a piece of paper from the terminal manager with their grades on it, walk up the steps, hand it to the scale operator, and the scale operator would type it in and create the ticket for us. And that definitely streamlined that process. So, what about the customer experience? That's really why we're here. At the end of the day, it really took a couple days to get used to it, and we unveiled it right about the initial point of harvest. We just didn't have any more time to drag our feet. Harvest is not a great time to implement it, but you get a lot of access to customers really fast. So there's good and bad points, but now they say they love it. So customers used to call us and ask, how long are your lines? And we tell them, about an hour and a half to 2 hours. Now they don't call. It's a not issue. We're pushing them through in 20 minutes at harvest. So dramatically have improved our operations. Customers appreciate not having to get in and out of trucks. Customers like the modern technology. And farmers don't have to decide if they should wait in line or if they just go to the bin and use their on-farm storage. We have had that where if the lines are too long, they'll put it in their on-farm storage, hope for a rain day when they can pull it back out and get it to the elevator. So that choice, they don't have to make that choice anymore. It is, but a lot of times they have a plan, so they've got malting contracts with barley, so if they fill it with canola, for instance, they've got to get that out so they can hold the malting barley, but it's a little more monkeying than what I'm used to, even coming from corn and soybean country. So really now the only complaint, once we got through the initial setup process, is we miss coming in and talking to you. The older growers would like to sit in line and figure out what's going on in the neighborhood and whose wheat's yielding what and what's going on around town. And now the solution we've had to come up with now is come in and have a cup of coffee and catch up on the gossip. Got a little video here. It depicts how a facility like ours works. Your driver comes in, swipes his RF card, populates his customer information on the screen. Todd had a very good point. If we can probe them before we get them to the first scale, it gives us an awful lot of extra time. That 30 seconds or 45 seconds to get that load graded before we assign it a pit is crucial to keeping traffic moving. Message boards to tell what pit to proceed to. seamless into the accounting system. Customer can call right away and say, what did that, how many loads did I bring in today? And we have it at our fingertips. Really, for us, it was a wow moment for our customers after the first week. Once they got used to it, we heard more compliments on the process and how much it streamlined their operation, getting in and out and as quickly as possible with accurate information. And yeah, they're just very, very pleased. So. Don't have anything else. If there is any questions. Yes.
I'm from Manitoba, so we're in a similar scenario with a bunch of different grains, red spring wheat. How do you grade the wheat fast enough? I mean, maybe this is a different question. To do it fast, it's not a scale process. How do you grade the wheat fast enough? So the guy's not sitting there waiting before you decide, which bin his whatever protein spring wheat's going to go in. Because I just find like wheat samples to do a real good grade on them is 5 minutes, and if you're doing VOM tests or falling numbers, way longer than that.
Right. So the question was how, when we're grading wheat, to do a full grade on wheat, to test for VOM and some of those, there's not enough time. I mean, trucks are moving through at, the rate of 40 an hour. So how we've gone about that is we'll take the risk on the first loads coming in at harvest. We'll run protein, and you can do that relatively fast. So we try to grade our sample of wheat in about a minute and a half, between moisture, dockage, and protein. And then we keep a composite sample, and at the end of the day, if the grower tells us what field he's doing, we send that sample in for a state grade, and that kind of gives us information as to whether we have vomitoxin or not.
Yeah, and you can see, I guess, look at it and see if there's scab in it or not.
Obviously, scab is a good identifier, but this past year we've seen wheat that had VOM that looks perfectly normal, so it's not an every year occurrence, but early on in harvest, we do the falling numbers tests. We just pick some random samples and see if there's a widespread issue out there. So, but you're right. To do it right, if you're really doing a full on grade on wheat, with all of those tests, it's a lengthier process than a minute and a half, 2 minutes.
Any other questions? I've got a couple for Sean here. I'm just curious, when did you implement and what would you have done differently?
We implemented about 2 days into harvest. Harvest was starting to ramp up, and we had to pick our point, and we thought we had the staff on board. They were comfortable with it. We had the staff that could go out and train the growers as they came in. And it really took us about a week, because then we had access to a lot of our growers within that week. And the first 2 or 3 times, if they had questions, it was pretty simple. They got it. And, so the first week was kind of a little touchy. Customers, they kind of, we're not really sure we like this. But once they got used to it, got comfortable with it, they liked it. So what would I have done different? Not implemented right at the front end of harvest.